Hello, good evening everyone. Thank you. We are here to continue the reading of the Buton's History of Buddhism in India and Tibet. So thank you for joining regularly. Now we will begin with the refuge and four immeasurables. Oyenda Buddha Dharma Sangha Ladam Bhajyandala Ashare Buddha Vajravi Yenda Buddha Dharma Sangha Ajare Vijayandala Bhavaja Ajyandala Ajare Vadavajave Endabu Dadarama Sangha Ajare Vijayandala Bhavaja Ajyandala Ajare Vadavajave Endabu Dadarama Sangha Ajare Vijayandala Bhavaja Ajyandala Ajare Vadavajave. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and a cause of suffering. May they know apart from happiness that know no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, and those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and a cause of suffering. May they know apart from happiness that know no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, those near and far. May all beings happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from the happiness. Jnana suffering. May they draw equanimity free from attachment and aversion to the near and far. According to the intelligence and position of it, Yachandandarama Agrelo Angama Virgo. Today we are in the blessed week, blessed month of Sagadawa, and particularly blessed week during which one celebrates the anniversary of Mahasiddha Virupa attaining 6 bhumis. And so being able to do any study and Dharma activities anytime is very good. But most importantly, if you can coincide to commemorate the enlightened activities of the Buddha, of course, out of the 12 months, this is the most sacred month. and particularly enlightened activities and anniversary of any great lineage master. So therefore, it's very good that I have here your company, and those of you lending your good attention and even better intention and a good retention, that any listening and reading we do will have not just a temporary relief thinking we did some reading and listening tonight, but will impact something deep, core of your conscious mind and consciousness, even life after life. It is said that you, even if you die tomorrow, you should learn something new. So, of course, this means the benefit shouldn't be only assessed on the day or on the week of the time, but believe in the long-term benefit of doing that. So this is meant by intention, attention, and retention. We should always retain this. And we are currently reading through the section on the life of the Buddha in the actual history of Buddhism by Buton. Of course, he's focused much on the importance of studying Dharma, listening Dharma, and then defining what Dharma is, what the Shastras are, and identifying quite a lot of those important texts. And then now we're looking at the teacher, the coming of the teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha himself, which without whose coming, there is no history of Buddhism. So it's really more any familiarity you have with the coming of Buddha and his life, that much you will understand his teaching, because you will know, oh, that's the teaching that he gave on that occasion, on that topic, and so on. So we are reading right now in the middle of the three turnings of the wheel of Dharma. Last week we stopped at page 53 and the second paragraph, so I'm going to continue reading from there. Thereupon the Lord, having begun with teaching that all elements are devoid of real essence of their own, is talking about how things are not having any substantial, independent, inherent existence of its own, that they neither become originated. Neither become originated means they didn't come about by themselves. Of course, doesn't mean they didn't become originated. They did, but they did not independently become originated, nor disappear. Yeah, nor they disappear independently. Everything is conditioned. That they are quiescent from the outset means they are really empty from its own side, and by their nature merge in nirvana. Has swung the second wheel of the doctrine. It's talking about turning the second wheel of Dharma for the sake of those who had entered the grey vehicle. Because talking about the lack of inherent existence wasn't the topic taught in the first turning of wheel of Dharma. In the first turning wheel of Dharma, Buddha said, there is. He said there is suffering, there is origin, there is a path, there is a cessation. But only in the second turning wheel Dharma, he starts saying there is no cause, there is no result, there is no path, there is no cessation. So that's exactly opposite to what he said. That's why those who enter in the great vehicle can comprehend these contrasts. Marvelous and wonderful as it demonstrates the principle of non-substantiality and relativity. Because the people can become very dualistic of what is right and what is wrong if you only go by the first turning of the wheel of Dharma. If there is. It's like saying there is a hell, there is a heaven. If you don't do good, you go to hell. If you do good, you go to heaven. This kind of basic kind of fear-mongering teaching was quite common to other religious teaching too, not just Buddhism. So that's why the greatness of the great Mahayana is that which actually teaches this ultimate teaching. But as regard this wheel of the doctrine swung by the Lord, there are likewise other teachings superior to it. It is of conventional meaning, presents an opportunity for controversy, and can be an object of dispute. Finally, the Lord has again stated with the teachings about the absence of real essence with elements and the demonstration of the latter as neither becoming originated nor disappearing, as quiescence from the outset, and as being by their very nature merged in nirvana. He has then swung the third wheel of doctrine for the adherents of all three vehicles, the teaching miraculous and wonderful as it gives perfect discrimination of that which is and is not of an ultimate reality. And this swinging of the wheel of the doctrine by the Lord is to be regarded as unsurpassable. It gives no opportunity for ascribing faults, is of direct meaning and cannot be an object of dispute. In the end, that even suffering and its origin really do not truly exist, which is very important to liberate. Otherwise, there's incredible fear and aversion to the suffering and lower rebirth and the self that we think is responsible for creating all of that. So at the end, we have to realize emptiness of all of that. The aim of this teaching, this third wheel of Dharma, was to remove the two extreme imputations, the meaning to extremes, and to cause the convert to adopt the middle way. The whole purpose is to teach people the middle way. middle way. According to the middle way, the Madhyamikas, the earliest and the latest scriptures are both conventional, and only intermediate contains the direct meaning. The passage of the Sandhina Mochana just quoted is explained by them as being itself conventional meaning. Some say that the teaching of the latest period is that which removes the contradiction between the first two divisions of the scripture. These authorities try to establish this on the foundation of Lankavatara, where it is said, so it's quotation from Lankavatara Sutra, from the empirical standpoint, everything exists, but from that of the absolute, there is no separate reality. Therefore, existent and non-existent, with regard to one and the something, must not be regarded as mutual contradiction. So they say, but we answer to this. The text quoted expresses the point of view of the Madhyamikas, but not that of the Vijnanavadins. Vijnanavadin is the mind-only school, meaning consciousness only, proponents of the consciousness. They think consciousness is truly existing. The latter are not of the opinion that something which does exist could at the same time be unreal and as an ultimate reality. And the Vijnanavada is not capable of removing contradiction between the views of the Hinayanis and those of the Madhyamikas. Some call the earlier scripture the wheel of the doctrine demonstrating the four truths of the saint, meaning Four Noble Truths, that of the second period, the wheel of the doctrine discriminating the two truths, and that of the third, the wheel of doctrine in which the distinction of the truth has not been made at all. This is incorrect, since we have undeniable proof that in this latest division of the scripture, the four or two truths have been frequently mentioned. According to some, the latest scripture is that of the different vehicles, since it demonstrates different teaching that relates to the three vehicles, as said in the Lalita Vistara, in different forms, demonstrating the resemblance with an illusion, a mirage, a dream, and the moon's reflection in the water, and an echo. The Lord has swung the wheel of the doctrine. Pandita Parahita Bhadra, Bhadra says, He has swung the wheel of the doctrine, teaching about the attainment of blissful existence of those deprived of the element of saintly lineage. And according to Sajjana, it is will of the doctrine of the Pratyeka Buddhas demonstrated to the members of the spiritual family. As concerns this last statement, Chak as a Tibetan scholar, says that the contradictory to that which is said to be of the three wills of the doctrine, that first is intended for the Hinayanis, second for the Mahayanis, third for the adherents of all vehicles. This is quite clear, since no separate code of the Pratyeka Buddha exists. Now, in reality, the Lord, having extirpated the force which calls forth speech, has attained enlightenment and perfect silence, then up to the time of his attaining nirvana, has not uttered a single word. But in accordance with the thoughts and the needs of the sentient beings, he appears as if teaching the doctrine in various forms, as it is said. A symbol on a magical circle issues its sounds, being agitated by the wind, and although there is nothing with which it is beaten, its sound is nevertheless heard. Similar to is the voice of the Buddha, which arises being called forth by the thoughts of the living beings and owing to their previous virtuous deeds. But the Buddha himself has not constructively thought by which his words could be conditioned. So this is talking about like a chime. The chime has been, by the sound of the wind, the chime makes the sound by the wind. And there is really nothing that is beaten. So but nevertheless sound is heard. So it's talking about there is no self-sounding cymbal or chime, but only when the movement of the wind. But the movement of wind doesn't produce sound if the chime wasn't there to be caused to be moved. So similarly, when the people hear the Buddha, Buddha's voice is heard by the thoughts of living beings themselves, seeking their wisdom. So due to their previous virtuous deeds. So it's talking about interdependence. The voice of the Buddha is therefore something inconceivable for our mind. The teacher has thus perceived that living beings subjected to suffering, being obscured by the penulicate of ignorance, tied by the knots of egocentric views, suppressed by the mountain of pride, consumed by the fire of desire, wounded by the weapons of hatred, cast into the wilderness of samsara, unable to cross the stream of birth, age, sickness, and death. So here, this sentence gives quite a collection of Buddhist metaphors. This metaphor, you're talking about knot, egocentric views. Views is like a knot, and then wound is hatred, wounded by the weapons of hatred, and cast into the wilderness of samsara, and are unable to cross the stream like a river of birth, order, sickness, death, in order to deliver them from their suffering. And between these teeth, resembling a beautiful sun and conch shell, he stretched out forth his tongue, endowed with miraculous power, ejected his voice, similar to that of Brahma, and thus expounded the whole of the doctrine. So that concludes the turning the wheel of Dharma. Now the 12-man act of the Buddha is the attainment of nirvana. He's passing over into nirvana. Thereafter, we have the last act of the Buddha, his departure into nirvana. Lord addressed Ananda in order that later should pray him not to pass over into nirvana. He said, "O Ananda, He who, on the foundation of the four miraculous powers, has repeatedly practiced profound meditation can, if he wishes to, remain living for an eon or even longer than that. But Buddha has taken recourse to that four miracles power and has practiced meditation again and again. Therefore, if the Buddha wishes, he can live during an eon and longer than that. So he spoke to him twice and thrice, but Ananda, being obscured by Mara, did not answer the word. Now this is quite an interesting point. Generally Buddhist, I don't know whether Theravada says this, or Mayan has definitely said that Buddha has said this in Vaishali to Ananda, that Buddha can live for eon if it was requested. But Ananda had not, was spellbound by some kind of maras, that he did not make any request to Buddha to live long. So out of one of the 7 limbs practices, one of that is to requesting to not pass ever into nirvana. And it is said that we have that so that we do not repeat the same mistake of Ananda in regard to our teachers. You can see that quite a lot of early Tibetan Buddhist teachers in the modern era, very influential teachers, like Lama Yeshe and other teachers like Trungpa and even 16th Karmapa, they all died before they turned 50. You know, did they fail? Did the disciple of each of these guru teachers fail to make long life offerings? The question really remains. Definitely you can see they're all asking to come there to teach. But while teacher is aging by doing a lot of teaching, have they not remembered that they should also request them to live long and not pass away, if possible? Well, in recent decades, the Tibetan Buddhist communities are definitely fear of not doing that and requesting His Holiness Dalai Lama and other teachers to live long. They make annual long life offerings in order that this kind of mistake are not repeated. Because this mistake of Ananda is actually mentioned at one of the 8 great blunders committed by Ananda in Buddhist history. Anyway, then the Mara, evil one, in his turn prayed to the Buddha to pass away into nirvana, and the Buddha consented, saying that he would do so in 3 months. So because Ananda did not ask Buddha to live long, then the Mara, who actually wanted the Buddha to pass away, requested to pass away. And then the Buddha said, yes, I will pass away in 3 months. Thereupon, the Buddha mastered the force of life and cut away the force of lifetime. So this means the Buddha actually had the power to live however long or choose to die at a particular time. So they're not, Buddha doesn't experience untimely, tragic, violent, and that kind of death. Buddha actually chose the place, time, and the manner of passing away. And the moment he did this, so then it's talking about, it doesn't go into details what else happened in Vaishali. You know, in Vaishali, just a little bit outside Vaishali, there is a place called Kesaria. Kesaria is the actual place where the Litsavis, people resident of Vaishali, gathered 60,000 of them and made a special farewell offering of dana to the Buddha, because Buddha is now leaving for good to go to Kushinagar, pass away, and that Kesaria is a place where Buddha actually shaved his hair when he left home and then start going into the forest where he meditated. Now that is considered to be biggest, largest Buddhist temple If you go to that place, you can see it is, because it hasn't been excavated yet. But Bihar government is on the verge of starting to do that very soon. And because it sits on main highway, the huge compound, they say that was actually the largest stupa than even that of the Mahabodhi. And because that was a big place of the Litsavi people, gave great significance to Buddha's departure from Vaishali, and they came to see off that far when Buddha was now walking towards Kushinagar. And so then the Buddha has power to now choose his time and when and where he pass away. At the moment he did this, so when the Buddha actually came to Kushinagar and start to pass away, the earth trembled, the stars fell down. Of course, stars fell down meant there was star shooting, there were a lot of comet shooting. And 10 quarters of the sky, there burst forth flames, and the gods residing in the atmospheric spheres beat the drums. Ananda asked the cause of this, and Buddha explained to him the 8 causes owing to the earth tremble. And Ananda then understood that the Buddha had cut away the force of life force and prayed him to continue to live, but Buddha did not consent. So Ananda made a request. Ananda requested, too late, too late. He did ask, but he asked too late. Thereafter, having delivered his instructions to the congregation of Chapala, the Lord departed in the direction of Vaishali. So I don't know, Vaishali, I don't know where from, and looking all the while to the right, he finally reached the grove of Shimpala trees situated in the north of the village Vriji. There he spoke to the monks about the 3 disciplines, and after he gradually came to another Chimchapa grove in the north of the village of Upaboga, and having demonstrated to the monks that the trembling earth was the sign that he will soon pass away in nirvana, he said, if the teaching which you intend to follow is contained in the sutras, is to be found in the Vinaya, and is not in conflict with the true state of things, you are to accept it as my doctrine. If this is not the case, then teaching of some other kind is not to be accepted. So Buddha actually explained very clearly the importance of following the Vinaya Sutra and Abhidharma, I suppose. Thereafter, the Buddha accepted his last alms from Chunda. Now this is the Chunda, the blacksmith, yeah? Chunda is the blacksmith, the son of blacksmith in the village of Papa. Now this is just near Kushinagar, and having preached the doctrine, he departed Kushinagar. On the way, he laid himself to rest between Papa and the river Basumati. Ananda got some, so that's the way Buddha was tired or something, he was tired and not feeling quite well. Then he asked Ananda to get some water. Ananda got some muddy water from the stream Kakuta and brought it to the Buddha. So Ananda went and offered the water. The latter washed his mouth and feet, and having refreshed himself, rose up. It is said that the river, the water that Ananda brought from the river was muddy, because only meters up the stream there were many bullock carts crossing the river, and the water has become very muddied. And Ananda didn't check that. He offered Buddha the muddy water. This is another one of the mistakes of Ananda. Anyway, so it's not elaborating here, but that's what is understood. From Pandaka, who belonged to the great community of the Mallas, who had been converted by the Buddha, the Lord accepted 2 new pieces of cloth of the color of gold. As he put them on, having cut off the fringes, his body shone brilliantly. Being asked the cause of this, he replied, "The reason is that I am to attain nirvana this evening." Then he washed himself in the river Vasumati, and as a means of removing the grief of Chunda, said he, whose alms the Buddha accepts will reap merit equal to that of attaining Buddhahood and Nirvana. Because Chunda is the last person to offer the Buddha the feast. And so Chunda was said, the merit of offering dana to the Buddha is incredible. Ananda then asked him how to pacify desire. He said, one must wash it away with the rain of moral purity and then arouse aversion to this worldly life. Because Ananda are still asking basic questions like how to pacify desire. And then Buddha said you should practice the Shila and develop renunciation from samsara and practice the Shila. Thereafter he gave his instructions to Katyayana how to deliver the precepts of the doctrine. Then on the way to Kushinagara, he grew tired and lay down. Ananda then spoke him about the component parts of enlightenment, whereupon the Buddha rose up, went to Kushinagara, and there, in the neighborhood of dwelling of the Malla. Malla is the name of the kingdoms of Kushinagara. He caused a seat to be erected between 2 sala trees. The reason, of course, it's not mentioned here that Buddha chose to pass away in Kushinagar instead of in Magadha or Shravasti and so on, because it said Ananda protested the Buddha. Why would you want to go to Kushinagar in such a frontier? We don't have any major followers there. But if you want to pass away, you should do so in one of the other kingdoms. And the Buddha said, I deliberately chose to a neutral country so that the dispute over my relics will be resolved by this neutral kingdom, and who will then, under the direction of Drona, will divide the relics equally to all the 8 kingdoms, including the Malla. So, but that's not detailed in this reading, but that's usually understood. So he talked about Buddha, a seat was prepared between 2 sala trees. That's the most important acts of the Buddha, from the birth all the way to passing away, all occurred under trees. So here is the sala trees. But he was born in a palaksha tree, under a palaksha tree. But he got enlightenment under the bodhi tree. So that's why the tree is very, very strongly associated in every major act of the life of the Buddha. And with his back to the north, he bent down to the right side, crossed his legs, lay down, having given himself up to the thoughts about the illumination of all living beings, and to intense concentration, having become possessed of the idea that he has now passed nirvana. And as Ananda was having grasped the seat, wept and lamented, and he was to be separate from the teacher, the latter appeased his grief by speaking of the 4 miraculous attributes with which Ananda has to become endowed in future. Because Ananda has not yet obtained these qualities of arhat, such as 4 miraculous powers. Ananda then asked him the reason why he was to attain nirvana here in this place. The Buddha replied, 6 universal monarchs, Maha Sudarshana, and the rest have passed away here. And with the Buddha, there will be altogether 7. So Buddha actually spoke of the importance of passing away 6 great important people there, and he will be the 7. At that moment, the gods were unable to sustain the splendor of the Buddha, and the anchorite endowed with the special marks of the super being and fled. Ananda then asked, how are they relics to be worshipped? Then Ananda asked, how do we honor your relics? Buddha replied, like those of a universal monarch. The body is to be wrapped in a cloth of a cotton wool and covered with 500 pieces of cloth. It is to be put into an iron coffin filled with oil. This coffin is to be closed with 2 iron lids, and the whole must be burnt in a pile of fragrant wood. The fire is to be quenched with milk, and the bones are to be put into a golden urn. Then, at the meeting places of the 4 roads, a monument is to be erected. This is the stupa. And after that, one must worship and feast. Thereafter, it was made known to the Mallas of the Kushinagar that the Buddha was to pass away that evening, and the Mallas accordingly came into the presence of the Lord. The latter preached the doctrine to them, and Ananda prescribed for them the obeisance that are to be kept by the devotee of the laity. Then there remained the teacher, the 2 disciples whom he had convert personally, Subhadra and Sunanda. These are the 2 last people Buddha to teach. In order to subdue the latter, that is Sunanda, the Lord took a lute, because the Sunanda was a very arrogant musician. And in order to subdue the latter, the Lord took a lute with 1,000 strings and a frame of Vaidurya stone. Then, having transformed himself into a Gandharva, he appeared before the doors of Sunanda and proposed a match in the scale of music. So he's talking about Buddha. Buddha was a musician as well, but nobody knew that was until then. Of course, Buddha was the musician of musicians, but teaching the Dharma with 60 melodies, remember that? That's the highest music than any instruments, really. He gradually cut off all the strings, with the exception of one, but the sounds nevertheless remained the same. Then Buddha showed him the skill, the miraculously. He cut away all 999 strings and just kept one string, but still playing with all the same sound that was produced by 1,000 strings. Finally, Buddha cut off the single string and remained likewise, but in the empty space, the sound continued to ring as above. The pride of Sunanda was thus humiliated, and he was greatly astonished. Teacher then appeared in his true form, and Sunanda, full of faith, made his salutation and sat down in order to hear the teaching. And as the Lord preached the doctrine to Sunanda, he came into the fruition of the truth, because this celestial musician Sunanda, Rabga, attained realization. At that time, there was in Kushinagar a Parivarajika named Subhadra, who, as it was said, had attained the state of Arhat. This one heard that on the bank of Mandakini pond, the flowers of Udumvara garden had withered, and that the cause of this was that Buddha was about to pass into nirvana. So this is the miraculous story about the Udumvara flower. Because when Buddha was born, then this Udumvara flower also blossoms. And also when Buddha passes away, this Udumvara flower dies out. So this is some kind of nature is showing the signs, omens, the passing away of the Buddha. Thinking that it was the time to get his doubts cleared, he went to Ananda and asked 5 times, but it was not admitted into the presence of the Buddha. This is the Sunanda. The teacher, as he knew about this, said, "This is the last time that I have to speak with the heretic," because the heretic, Buddha really said, "I need to speak to him before I pass away. Therefore, let him come." Because this person was not being admitted or allowed by Ananda to come, because this Buddha was about to pass away, and this is a heretic, But Buddha said, "Look, this is last time, please bring the heretic, and therefore let him come." And after he had spoken many a word in the delight of Subhadra, he said, "O Subhadra, when I attained the age of 29 years, I became a monk. Then for 150 years, this talking of 51 years, have practiced every positive virtue. O Subhadra, the religious discipline in which the eight-membered path of the saint, eight-membered path of the saint refers to the eight differences, arhats, stream entry, one's returner, non-returner, and arhat one. Each of them have entry and abider, so that makes 4 times 2, 8. It's referred to that eight-member path of saint is wanting, does not bring up to about the 4 results attained by an ascetic, because each of the abiding has 1 result each, so that's the 8. But if the eightfold path does not exist, then these results are realized. Apart from this eightfold path, there can be no real attainment of saintliness. And as he spoke, thus Subhadra came to perceive the truth, became ordained by being addressed with the summons, "Come here," attain arhatship. So those days, the Buddha did not have to conduct very detailed, a long ceremony. He just simply said, "Come," and then people's hair got naturally shaven, and they got automatically clothed in the robes of the Dharma, so it is said. And these days, of course, you have to do the exact opposite. You have to cut the hair and beard and so on. Then you have to change the actual clothing and so on. And have to have at least 8 or more fully ordained sanghas and to go through the long ritual. But those days, they don't have to go. Buddha simply says, "Come forth," and then that was it. And then, thinking that he ought not to witness the teacher's departure, he blessed the 5 sacred places and passed away into nirvana himself. Thereafter, the teacher delivered the following precept: one must not introduce the religious order into the religious order the heretics, with exception of the Shakyas, and the 12 classes of sacred texts are to be recited. Those 12 classes of the like the Sutra and the Gaya and what we call the Udanavarga and Jatakamala, all those 12 classes, the 12 classes of sacred texts are to be recited for the sake of bringing about happiness and welfare of fourfold congregation. So this is the reading of the sutras or the Vinayas, and those occasionally chanting periodically happens in the temples or monasteries. Not so much as a study, but merely reading them, it has lots of merit. The teacher must be subjected to the rules of the Pratimoksha. The old must keep together the young by providing them the necessity of life. So Buddha gave the instructions how to ensure the continuation of the doctrine of the Sangha. The young must not call the elders by name. To those who are possessed of faith, one must speak about the following 4 subjects: the apparition of the Buddha in this world, his attainment of enlightenment, his teaching of the doctrine, and his departure into nirvana. O monks, if you have doubt as regards the 3 jewels and the 4 truths, and ask now. Then he took off the garment and covered the upper part of his body and said, "O monks, it is very difficult to meet the apparition of the Buddha. apparition of the Buddha, perceived through, therefore now, the body of the Buddha. Buddha deliberately asked them to look at the actual holy body of the Buddha from top to toe. O monks, henceforth I shall speak no more. This is the last word of the Buddha. All the elements of the existence that are caused and conditioned are liable to distraction. And having uttered this, he became absorbed in the 4 degrees of trance, ethereal sphere, and 4 degrees of immaterial sphere. This is the what we call the eight meditative state, and the cessation trance, and in direct and reverse order. After that, he again entered the first 4 degrees of trance. Then, after attaining the culminating point of the last of these, he passed away into nirvana. The teacher, Srila Palita, in his commentary on Vinaya Sutraka, gives the following explanation, which agrees with the point of view of Kashmiri Vaiveshikas. After the attainment of a culminating point, 4 degrees of trance, one comes to the neutral state of mind, which is followed by nirvana. This neutral state, being near to the culminating point before said, is called the culminating point. Immediately after the Lord has passed away into nirvana, earth trembled, the stars fell down. From the 10 quarters of the sky, there burst forth flames, and sounds of celestial music was heard. So that's talking about the many miraculous sights that coincided with Buddha's passing away. So next point comes the burial of the Buddha. At that time, Mahakashapa is the senior most disciple of Buddha, and who also became the successor of the Buddha. At that time, Mahakashapa was abiding at Rajgriha. When Buddha was passed away in Kushinagar, Mahakashapa, who was supposed to be the one who actually set the funeral pyre and tortured, but he was in Rajgriha, abiding in Rajgriha. Having come to know the teacher had passed away, he thought, such is the nature of all phenomena elements. If the king Ajatasattu hear this, he will certainly die. Now, this is Mahakashapa thinking. King Ajatasattu is one of the Buddha's disciples, Therefore, one must find a means of preventing this, So he says, I'm going to make sure that King Ajatasattu will not die, faint, or because if he heard the Buddha pass. Accordingly, he said to Brahmana Varsika, go thou to the garden without delay and draw a picture illustrating the acts of the Buddha. So he asked the Brahmin to draw a picture of the Buddha. How he became conceived in the womb, how he attained enlightenment, how he swung the wheel of doctrine, how he demonstrated the miraculous apparitions in Shravasti, and how he ascended to the abode of the gods in Keshapati, how he went to take his last rest in Kushinagar. So this is interesting, isn't it? Here, the Mahakashapa asked the Brahma Varshaka to draw the biography of the Buddha, to do a mural, I suppose, so that this will not be forgotten, and also to avoid King Ajatasattu from dying. Then place the 7 wooden troughs filled with fresh butter, and the 8th with finest sandalwood, and then gradually demonstrated to the king the events of the Buddha's life. Thereafter, when the king faints, thou must put him into the 7 troughs with fresh butter, and the 8th with sandalwood, and make him recover. Varshaka acted according to the instructions and gradually showed to the king the acts of the Buddha. This, said he, is the arrival of the teacher at Kushinagar to take his last sleep. And as the king asked, has the Buddha passed away? He did not answer a word. Remember, the king fell in a swoon But Vashika made him recover according to the instructions which he had received. And at the time, certain monk who had come out uttered the following verse. In that grove where the pair of Shala, those most beautiful of the trees do grow. The teacher has passed away into nirvana, and we have strewed flowers in that place. The Indra said, alas, the phenomenal elements are evanescent. They are subjected to origination and destruction. The purification of the elements is the true bliss. The Brahma said, this is the culmination of all the virtues that can be accumulated by the living beings and can be desired far in this world. Here, an individual higher than whom there are none, the Buddha who has attained the 10 powers and is possessed of the divine light, teacher has passed away into nirvana. Aniruddha said, Aniruddha is one of the 5 mendicants, said, he who with a firm and a steady mind has protected the living beings and has attained the motionless quiescent state. He who is endowed with the faculty of divine wisdom has now passed away into nirvana, having emitted and suspended his breath. And at that time, some of the monks were rolling on the ground in despair. Some lamented loudly, others sat in silence, tormented by sorrow, and still others were reflecting over the essence of the doctrine. So you can talk. They're talking about the scene of all the people not coping. Next day, Ananda summoned the Mallas of Kushinagar, who up to the 7th day made necessary arrangements. So you can see the body was left to be untouched for at least 1 week, holy body. And on the 7th day, the wives and daughters of Malla spread a canopy, and the Malla youth made a beer. The gods worshipped, offering perfumes, wreaths of flowers, incense, and the like. They all entered Kushinagar by the western gate, came into the middle of the city, then went out through the eastern gate and crossed the river Vasumati. Thereafter, the Mallas prayed to make halt at a sanctuary where they deposit the ornaments of their heads. The gods, in their turn, strewed flowers so that the feet and the leg of the body were covered up to the knees. A certain Ajivaka, having gathered many of these flowers, went to the city of Papa and made the Mahakashapa, whose grief was not appeased and who had come in order to worship the relics of the Buddha. And as this Ajivaka related about teacher's attainment of nirvana, all monks said, O monks, you are now released from him who has said, this you may do and this you may not. I tell you, do what is your power to do and do not what you cannot. But the gods cast a veil on his words and made them unheard to the assembly, with the exception of Mahakashapa. Then the latter summoned the congregation, let us go quickly in order to see the relics of Buddha, as long as they have not been destroyed by the flames. At that time, the Mallas began to perform funeral rites as becoming the universal monarch. They tried to set the pile on fire, but the flame did not blaze up. Before Mahakashapa arrived, the people actually tried to burn it. Aniruddha knew that this was because Kashyapa had not come. That Aniruddha, the Arhat, knew the reason why the funeral pyre wasn't catching the fire was because Mahakashyapa has not arrived. Kashyapa then came, opened the coffin, took off the piece of cloth and cotton wool, and made his salutation to the body as it was still untouched by the flame. The body has not been touched by the flame. Thereupon, Kashyapa, being the wisest of the most virtuous of the 4 great Sravakas, the other being Ajnata Kaudinya, Chunda, and Kashyapa with the 10 powers, wrapped the body with a new cotton wool and the 500 new pieces of cloth, put it into the iron coffin, filled with latter with oil, covered it with 2 iron lids, and piled up the fragrant wood, and the fire then blazed by itself. Ananda then said, "The great leader, endowed with precious body and possessed of miraculous powers, has departed into the world of Brahma. The worldly frames of the Buddha has now covered by 500 pieces of cloth and 1,000 religious garments. By its own luster, this body, though well wrapped, has become perfectly consumed. But 2 of the robes have not been burned, the most inward and the most outward, these 2. Thereupon the mallas quenched the fire with milk, and from that milk there sprang forth 4 flowers, Ajava, Pindura, and Ashwatha, and Udumvara. So these are the 4 magical flowers. The relics were then deposited into a golden urn, which they placed in the middle of the town and worshipped. Thereafter, the mallas of the Papa, having heard that the teacher had passed away 7 days before, collected a 4-membered army and declared to the mallas of the king Kushinagar that this teacher has a long time been dear to us. He has now passed away in the neighborhood of your town. You must give us our portion of the relics, that we could erect a monument in our town, worship and feast. But if you do not give us our part, we shall take it by force. Do so, replied the mallas of the Kushinagar. In a similar manner, the members of Kshatriya's family from Paluka of the Chalakalpa, the Krodavas of the Ravana, Brahmins of the Vaishnavadipas, Shakyas of the Kapilavastu, and Litsavis of the Vaishali demanded their share. Ajatasatru Magadha in his turn heard that all these had gone to take their part of relics. So he likewise set out, having mounted his elephant. But as he thought about the merits of the deceased Buddha, he fell down and swooned with grief. Thereafter, having recovered, the saint Varsaka, having said to him, "Ask thou in my name the mallas, whether they are unharmed and not subject to danger, whether they are in troubles, how they live, whether they are powerful and enjoy happiness, and tell them as follows. Teacher has for a long time showed his benevolence to us and has been our preceptor. At present he has passed away in the neighborhood of your town. Therefore give us our part of the relics. We shall erect a monument in Rajgriha, worship and feast." Varshaka did as he was ordered. The mallas said in return, "We intend to do the same, but," said Varshaka, "if you shall not give us our part, we are going to fight for it." "Do so," was the answer. The wives and children of the mallas learned the skill of archery, and in order to encounter the 4-membered armies of their antagonists, the mallas, their force being likewise 4-membered, marched out. At that time, a member of Brahmanical family of Drona, knowing that if there would be a struggle and there would be mutual slaughter, said to the mallas of Kushinagar, "Teacher from the very beginning was endowed with forbearance and has sung the praise of the latter. It is therefore ill-suited that you should kill each other for the sake of the relics. We shall divide them into 8 parts and worship them ourselves in the golden urn." "Do so," said the mallas of Kushinagar. Then the same was told to the mallas of Papa and to all the others up to Varshaka. Then they all said, "Do like that." Accordingly, the relics were divided into 7 parts, and each was given his part, beginning with the mallas of Kushinagar and ending with Varshaka. Each of these then erected a monument in their own country and worshipped and feasted. The part of the relics which was given to Ravana, was carried off by the Nagas and worshipped by them. The urn in which the relics had first been deposited was given to the member of Brahmanical family of the Drona, who erected the monument in his own city. The ashes of the body fell a lot to Nigrodha Raja, and that youth of Brahmanical caste built a monument in the Nigrodha country, performed sacrificial rites, and made a great feast. At that time, there were thus 10 monuments, and with 4-eyed teeth of the Buddha, altogether 14 objects of worship. There were 8 parts of the relics of the Omniscient, as they were distributed by Drona. Of these, 7 became objects of worship in Jambudvipa, and one of the parts of the highest being's relics, that in the city of Ravana, was worshipped by the king of the Nagas. There remained, moreover, 4 teeth of the highest being. Of these, 1 tooth was worshipped in the realm of the gods, 2nd in the delightful city of Gandhara, 3rd in the realm of the Kalinga king, and the 4th teeth of that the greatest of men, the king of Nagas, worshipped in the city of Ravana. And the king Ashoka, residing in the Patliputra, decorated richly the 7 monuments. And in this land, subject to their power, these 7 monuments became adorned by objects of worship. Thus the Lord of gods, Nagas and men, the lords of men, Nagas and Yakshas, paid their homage and worshipped the relics. The Lord, endowed with the highest wisdom and commiseration, and fully possessed of the 10 powers, was born in the Shakya clan and attained enlightened Magadha. In Kashi Vanaras, he swung the wheel of the doctrine, and within the shelter of Kushinaga, he passed away into Nirvana. So this is talking about why these historical sites of the Buddha are so important. As concerns the meaning of Nirvana, the Hinayanic school considered that to be the complete annihilation, stream of all elements, the material as well as the mental, just as the fire becomes extinguished after the fuel has been consumed. According to the sum of the Mahayanists, the body of bliss attained nirvana, but none of the Buddha's adherents know about this. It is said that this is the case similar to that of the Indra, whose death is known only by himself, whereas the gods surrounding him have no notion about it. This is not correct, as it is said that the body of bliss is eternal, and then the stream of its existence is uninterrupted. True causes of longevity have been mentioned: abstaining from taking away life and giving food to others. Now, if the two are fully practiced, if the accumulation merit are fully accomplished, and one has not taken course to the highest forms of meditation on the basis of the 4 miracles power, it becomes possible, if one desires, to remain living for an eon and longer. By such factors, the eternal existence of the body of bliss is conditioned. It is said in the commentary to the Anantamukha Nihara Dharani, only the apparition body and not the other forms are spoken of passing away into nirvana. The other 2 forms of the possess of the factors for an external existence, and it is impossible for them to pass away. Accordingly, it is said that the apparition body, which is Nirmanakaya body, and not the body of bliss, that's Sambhogakaya, does not pass away into nirvana. It has moreover been said that the apparition body has attained nirvana, but this doesn't mean that its stream of existence is altogether annihilated. We read in the Saddharma Pundarika, when the sons of the skillful physician do not drink the medicine, their father, having prepared a remedy, says, Drink as long as remedy is there, for I am about to die. So saying, the feigns death. The sons know that, the father being dead, there is no other who knows about a remedy. And so, in order to preserve their lives, they drink the medicine. Thereafter, when they have recovered from the illness, they come to know the father did not really die. Now, the father did not commit a sin of lying in doing so. Similar to the case when Buddha's attainment nirvana, which demonstrated by him as a means of converting the living beings, it is said in the Suvarna Prabhasha, Buddha does not pass away and his teaching does not cease to exist. But in order to bring the living beings to maturity, Buddha demonstrated his departure in nirvana. Sutra Alankara says, as fire blazes forth in some places and become extinct in others, so is the Buddha for the living beings, seen by some and unseen by others. Unseen by others. It is said in the Sutra Alankara that the stream of existence of the apparition body is uninterrupted. Now, we have to understand this as follows. If food is given to somebody again and again, we say the food is given constantly and uninterruptedly. It is in a similar manner. Apparition body manifests itself uninterruptedly and is therefore regarded as having constant existence that does not cease. Here it has passed away into nirvana, but elsewhere it abides without departing. Here it has passed away, since there are no more such beings who could be converted by beholding his visual form of the Buddha. In either case, it does not pass away, since there exist such who are to be converted through the sight of the Buddha's corporal form, like Indra and the like. It is said in the Surangamana Samadhina Sutra, at present, there in the seat of sphere of Buddhaic activity called perfect adorned, there abides the Buddha Vairocana, king of miraculous power, crowned with rays of light. The duration of his existence is equal to 7 immeasurable periods of eons. It is said that the Buddha represents the true form of our teacher. He manifests himself 1,000 million such words of the 4 continents as ours. In some of these, he becomes born. In some, he manifests himself as attaining enlightenment, and in others, he swings the wheel of doctrine, and still in others, he demonstrates his departure into nirvana. In accordance with all of this has been said, Buddha is not to be regarded as not having attained nirvana, inasmuch as he has removed all the obscuration. But, on the other hand, he does not pass away, since his work is not accomplished. It is said in the Mahayana Sangraha, he has attained nirvana on one side and has not attained it on the other, since he has removed all the obscuration, but at the same time has not accomplished his work. Now, it may be asked, what was his age when he passed away? Some say that he was converting when he was converting the Pravarjika Subhadra and the Gandharva Sunanda. He spent a year in converting each. Otherwise, as it is said, having been entreated by Chunda, he consented to live for 2 years more. Thus, according to the said authority, he passed away when he was 82 years of age. I, however, know no source. This is Buton. I, however, saw no source that justifies this statement. And the latter disagrees with the Astamahasthana Chaitya Sutra, where it is said, having been entreated by Chunda, he continued to live for another 3 months. An authoritative verse in the Vinaya says that, according to the Vinaya Sutraka, Buddha passed away 84 years age. It is clear that the authority has not read the Vinaya Sutraka, for it is said that in the latter, O Ananda, Buddha has attained age 80 and has thus met with the age and infirmity. Therefore, it will be correct if we affirm that he has passed away when he was 80 years old. Accordingly, it is said in the Suvarna Prabhasha that Lord has attained the age of 80, and in the Karuna Pandarika that the Buddha's age was that of 100 years without 1/5. In many other sutras, we likewise have stated the teacher lived 80 years. The Mahavivasha moreover says, in the place where he swung the wheel of doctrine, in Vaishali, in Pandubhumi, in the realm of gods, in Balaga and in Koshambi, in the wilderness and Ushirayasi, in Bamboo Grove and in the city of Kapilavastu, in each of these places of the Lord, the highest of living beings abided for a year. 23 years he resided in Sravasti, 4 years in the place abounding with remedies, 2 years he spent in Indra Chaliguha, 5 years in the village of Rajgriha, 6 years he underwent practice of asceticism, and 29 he abided in the Father's palace. Thus Lord, the holiest of highest of sages, attained the age of 80 and departed nirvana. He's talking about how many years exactly Buddha lived. And as concerns the date of Buddha's attainment of nirvana, it is said in the Mahaparinirvana Sutra that it took place in spring, on the 15th month of Vaishakha at midnight. In the commentary of the Vinaya Sutra, the work of the teacher Srila Palita, it is said that it was the end of the autumn in the month of Kartika on the 8th day of ascending the moon. The great Pandita Shakyavarshri said that it was the 8th of the ascending moon of Kartika at midnight. At the time when the moon disappeared behind the mountain, the highest of the sages passed away in nirvana. According to the Hinayanis, in the evening of Buddha subdued the demon of the karna desire. At daybreak, by the force of concentrated force called thunderbolt-like, he vanquished the demon of moral defilements. When the evil one prayed the Buddha to pass away in nirvana, Lord said that he would not depart till he has not accomplished all his work for the welfare of 4 kinds of adherents. In such a manner, some say he vanquished the demon of death. Some are of the opinion that he subdued the demon governing the 5 groups of elements at the time when he was practicing asceticism. Others affirm that the vanquished demon of death, and him who governs the group of the elements after attaining nirvana. Now we know that in Bamboo Grove, he observed the summer fast, and at that time he showed how severe and rigid observance were to be kept. Therefore, having been entreated by the evil one, he cut away the force of lifetime and mastered the forces of life. It is clear that by means of this, he vanquished the Lord of Death and the demon governing the groups of elements respectively. Janagarbha says, by these and similar words, he demonstrated his mastery over them, the forces of life, and this became he had vanquished the 2 demons and was full of commiseration with regard to the converts. Accordingly, he vanquished the 2 demons who bore respectively the character of Lord of Death and the 5 groups of elements, this means aggregates, skandha, and being full of compassion with these 3, with those who were to be converted, he pronounced the blessings through which he made manifest his mastery over the forces of life. In order to show that he had power of death, he rejected the force of lifetime, and in order to demonstrate the power over the groups of 5 elements, he mastered the vital forces. This is to be taken as a matter of fact. According to the Mahayanists, the Buddha vanquished the 4 demons simultaneously, as it is said, hast thou not attained enlightenment, and that very time vanquished the 4 demons. As concerns these 12 acts of the Buddha, so now to summarizing the 12 acts of the Buddha, we have accounts in the Vinaya and in the Avinishkarmana Sutra and in the Lalita Vistara, each having its own special version. So he says there's 4 versions in those very classical texts. Here, in describing the first 11 acts, we have followed the Lalita Vistara. The act of the Buddha's departure nirvana is rendered in accordance with the Vinaya Shuddhika, the hidden meaning, etc. of these accounts is to be known in detail from the Upaya Kaushalya Sutra. So we'll conclude here tonight. Which is the passing away of the Buddha, which is the celebrating this month by birth, enlightenment, and passing away of the Buddha. So next chapter start with the detailed analysis of the subject, conferring to the doctrine. So what happened with the compilation of texts and successor of the Buddha, and the true history of the story of how the teachings were consolidated and compiled will follow from next chapter. So with this we will conclude here. Thank you very much, everyone. Let's do the dedication merit. Om Badamarumevaga Dadeva Benzagahones Mehaile Pereda Bebrande Ojana Patodesenede Herenda Mahayana Deje Vadeva Mereda Hegre Mehobe Bekas Deleveza Tehoda Mahayana Deje Kareja Manjushinyavade Azama Dabadradilaiva Falove Ahadehezava Ashade Degeode Mere Mede Selembadi Jeda Teba Verenayadaza Verha Svembo Medengr Prelevedade Generation. Thank you. Yeah.